Hi, today we'll be discussing the laws of heredity and genetics and basic Mendelian genetics. So really what heredity is, it's the passing of characteristics from parents to offspring. In humans, we will inherit 23 chromosomes from each of our parents to give us a total of 46 chromosomes in each one of our cells. So genetics is the study of this heredity and how the traits are inherited and passed along. A little bit of history. Gregor Mendel is the reason we refer to this as Mendelian genetics. It's a very set pattern of how characteristics are inherited. He studied pea plants, and he's the one who did the crosses where he would cross two different varieties and see what the offspring or babies would come up with. And so this is what his research is, what our Mendelian genetics will be based on. There's Mendel. Genes are going to be the factors that control each trait. So when we're going to kind of discuss pea plants because that was Mendel's research. There's going to be a gene in the plant for height, there's a gene for seed color, there's a gene for seed shape, and there's a gene for really any trait that anything could possibly have. These are just some examples. Alleles are the different forms of the gene. So if we're talking about a gene for height, the different alleles in a plant could be tall and short. This is a plant, we're not talking humans. This is a plant where there's really only two represented. And we represent these by letters. So we would call tall, capital T, because we've researched and Mendel researched and found this is a dominant trait, so we give it a capital T. A recessive trait is short. We're going to give it the letter small t because he has researched and found that that's a recessive trait. So you don't have to guess on that. Research has been done to know what's a dominant and what's a recessive trait. Notice we're using T consistently, not T and then S. You want to stick with the same letter. So what Mendel did for his research is he took a pure tall plant and a pure short plant, and he crossed them, and what he realized was that all of the offspring were tall, not medium in the middle somewhere. They all came out with the tall trait. So we can kind of see what he did by using a Punnett square. And so with the Punnett square, what Mendel did is he took capital T, which represents a pure tall plant, and small t, which represents a pure short plant. We need to use two letters to represent them because one letter would have come from the mother, one letter would have come from the father for each plant. So when we cross them, matching them up where they meet up in the boxes, we're going to find that they all come out like this. In the box represents the possible offspring that these two parents could have. And with this combination, this represents tall, not medium, because this capital is dominant. That means it's going to take over from the recessive, and those will all four be tall offspring. And that's what Mendel found in his research. Okay, so the phenotype is what we refer to is what you can see. So with Mendel's experiment, if you could see the plants, they're all tall. So that's what we call the phenotype, is what they would actually look like. The genotype are the possible combinations of genes or alleles or letters. So the genotype would refer to as, capital, 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 small, small, small. In Mendel's experiment, all of his offspring's genotype came out like this. So the genotype are the actual letters. The phenotype is what they would actually look like. We refer to something as homozygous or purebred if they have the same two alleles for their trait. So they could be purebred recessive or purebred dominant. But notice they're the same letters for each. So that is called purebred or homozygous. Heterozygous is also called hybrid, which means different. So hybrid would be having one dominant and one recessive for the trait. So when Mendel did his experiment, all of the offspring came out as hybrid, even though the parents had been purebreds. Mendel found what's called the law of segregation. Segregation means to separate. So he found that each parent will separate the alleles that it gives. So going back to our Punnett square, one parent could give one letter and then one parent gave the other. So both of these letters, like even though this could have been from the mom can only give one letter to its offspring, and dad can only give one letter or gene to its offspring. So that's what's known as the law of segregation in genetics. And that concludes our lecture on genetics.